indulgence, I'll turn it over to Dan Hoffman and Melissa McCready.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Dan Hoffman, Assistant City Manager. I don't have anything else to add. The City Manager stated it well, but two main topics tonight. We're going to hit through a few quick updates right at the outset. Things the Commission had asked about in the last several months that we wanted to bring back to you. Just some answers to questions that have come up. But then we're going to get into the meat of it. Because there are going to be motions or a lot of guidance given into the workshop format, we will move through it relatively quickly, but please feel free to jump in at any point. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa McCready to kick us off.
Good evening. So first, our status updates. We wanted to let Commission know the micromobility ordinance will be on the March 5th agenda for first read. We finished the final draft of the ordinance earlier today, meeting with the City Attorney, so that is definitely going to be on the March 5th agenda. We also have successfully launched the autonomous vehicle shuttle on February 3rd. So I know some of you were at that event, and so far we've seen some ridership on it. Not robust, but there are people riding it on a daily basis. And then there was a couple parking questions that have come up in several public meetings over the last month or so, and so we wanted to circle back and address some of those. The paid parking on Newberry Road. This is a state road, and it is outside of our current enforcement district, so we would have to work with the DOT in order to investigate that further, if that's even a possibility. Plus, from an enforcement side and an equipment side, we're not really sure how we would address that with our current staff, but that's part of a later discussion today also. But we certainly are open to working with DOT to see if it's something that they'd be even open for us to regulate. Also, the 4th Avenue parking concerns that have come up in that neighborhood. We are looking at doing some additional data collection to inform what the concerns have been, as well as installing some wayfinding signage so people know that there is a parking garage they could park in order to go to those, the food trucks, I guess, really, that have really popped up there in the last couple of months or so.
Yeah, we are talking about Southwest 4th Avenue.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, Southeast, Southeast has a separate project, Southwest.
Yes,
I apologize.
Southwest 4th Avenue, where Dick Mondell's and
And then we had also had a question, I guess, about back and angle parking. I wasn't at that meeting, but just wanted to come back and let you know that whenever we have policy that supports back and angle parking, and whenever we're able to, we do put it in on new projects, through development review, as well as through any different road building projects that we do, but we aren't going back and.
Commissioner?
And with that, I think you're just
Yes.
going to, we don't go back in it. Would there be a transition plan put forth somewhere to say, like, when roads are being repaved? Or
That's what our policy is now.
Okay.
So when they are repaved, yes, absolutely, they are, it's
Phil
safer.
here?
No, Phil's not here, but Debbie Leisner is does the planning for public works as well as
It's a brilliant
transportation.
idea. I think
Right.
the way it's fit in at the Cade, it's,
Well, and it is a lot safer.
yes, I have felt it.
Yes, exactly. And so it's also on Southwest 6th Street.
Great. The other question I had,
Yes.
when you're talking about the difficulty of doing paid parking on Newberry Road, how do we manage to do that on University Avenue? That's also the same road system,
Correct, but
right?
that's been there for a number of years.
Oh, okay.
So we have to circle, we still have, when it's a state-owned road, we still have to work with the state regardless of what we're doing to that road.
I was just wondering how it got to be in one place and now it's difficult, but that makes sense. That's my grandfather did. Thank you.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would like for us to move forward on the paid parking on Newberry Road and request that to DOT. On 4th Avenue, are you having wayfinding signage to our garage or to the Continuum garage or?
Our parking garage, the city-owned parking garage on 2nd. It's closed.
It's only 2 blocks away.
It feels
And it is served by Eureka Transit as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Go ahead.
And then lastly, we wanted to bring back just recent ridership numbers on our first mile, last mile. We have seen consistent ridership. It has been robust. Our when it is the hours that the shuttle service or the microtransit is running, they are pretty full buses. So.
When you do a report like this, it's, because my memory is short, to be able to say how it's been since the beginning maybe, so is there still are we still in the first 12 months of this?
We started at January of last year for
Okay.
2 of the routes, and then August of last year for.
I like seeing those things that show that the numbers are increasing. It just adds.
That's why, it's been consistent, they've been basically the same.
Oh, so it's about that, this 876 has been consistent?
Correct,
Okay.
it's very consistent, really since the second week we launched the service. It's been very consistent on the ridership numbers, and it does have a little bit of an ebb and flow with school semesters, but other than that, it's pretty consistent that we're serving the east side with this service.
And we also,
Sorry, this might help answer it. Is there been a capacity added? I know we've added some vehicles, so if you saw a histogram that showed ridership over time, it might look like it's plateaued, but in many cases, it's really that we're at capacity.
okay.
Yeah, some trips are already full. This is the average. You know, you have a capacity of 10 passengers on a van. You have, some of them already have more than half on every trip, so.
And then
some
the
are
profile of
capacity.
the users are, you know, is there a pretty good mix of students and elderly people needing to get to the grocery store? So. the
Yes, a
age
mix
range-
from Santa Fe students to low income,
To high school students.
Significant number of size.
people that want to finish their
Okay.
trip with the transit routes, so, yeah, it's a mix. Even faculty and staff in the UF are using it sometimes. Yeah. No,
Well, then to have a budget item on this, so, because we'll be jumping into the budget soon, to be able to have that, for any recommendations on how much it would cost to grow it. Because I think that's been a great thing, that we've really been able to make a connection where it's been needed.
Right, and that was part of the transit development plan and the micro-mobility hubs, or the mobility hubs reports that we did. We have all of that analyzed, we have the zones already established and the cost estimates for that, so we're certainly happy to bring all that back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Sepis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. This maxes out the routes of our pilot program, is that correct on this? And I guess also is, do we have any, so this is running in mornings and afternoons, are we thinking about doing any expansion of this route or two, like to test out how it does during the day during this kind of pilot program to kind of feel out more hours and see what the ridership is like?
It's just we're trying to control the cost. If we do that during the day, it's gonna be expensive.
So it's not currently budgeted as part of this pilot?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, go ahead, please.
All right, that brings us to the highly colorful graphic explanation of our fleet for our buses.
Okay, you know, FDA, useful life of a bus is 12 years or 500,000 miles. You know, even the feds are considering trying to go to 15 years. But we run on a yearly basis 4 million miles. So if you divide it by 500,000 miles, so that is a useful life. You need to replace at least 8 buses a year to maintain the existing fleet average fleet age. So on our plans, the plans that we have is free to have 18 buses a year in order to reduce the fleet age and be in an optimal operating, conditions that we can reduce the operating cost. Like our city manager said that if we continue with that, we only put on buying 2 buses a year. If we keep doing at that pace, we're gonna be having buses falling apart, pretty much. So we need to replace our fleet.
And that assumes we continue to buy the diesel, not the electric versions of the buses. The electric versions of the buses run about $1 million.
Twice
So
as
we'll be only buying 1 bus a
Yeah.
year if we do electric buses.
What are the life, what are the life cycles of an electric bus?
The same, 12 years.
What is the bidding process that we go through to select our buses? I assume there is one.
Yes, so we have transitioned mainly to Gillig, and there's some benefit to staying with the same manufacturer. We have to maintain and fix them, so having a variety of different manufacturers is problematic. It's not to say we don't have some other types of buses in the fleet. For example, our first mile, last mile vehicles are an entirely different style of vehicle, so we can maintain them, but there's some benefit to having a consistent manufacturer. So we order ours. We have We've been ordering ours from Gilead for quite a while now.
But we participate as part of the state consortium, so all the transit agencies participate on that. So to get a cheaper price on buses.
Can you maybe describe to me what the state consortium is?
It's, all the transit agencies participating on an RFP process.
Okay.
So they have selected different agencies to be the committee to select the vendor. And last year we selected 3 vendors, so
Okay.
we don't need to buy gimmicks, but when you look at the pricing, was the cheaper option.
Gotcha. And the reason I asked that question is just because if we are going to go through a process of changing, the fleet over a period of time, I want to make sure that we're getting all the options available to purchasers. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. How much are the fleet buses as opposed to as opposed to the smaller buses that we use for last mile, first mile?
Those vans are close to 85,000.
85,000. So the plan is to replace the fleet completely over the next, or is there a different kind of plan for, I know that we're looking at mobility holistically, so I'm wondering if there's different options for.
So there would be some mitigating factors as we shift to the model that the TDP outlined with the first mile, last mile zones, smaller vehicles, concentrating our larger vehicles on trunk lines. That would help mitigate some of this, but just due to the sheer number of larger buses, the Gilligs, that need to be replaced, it wouldn't, we would still need to devise a pretty significant capital replacement plan, because we wouldn't overnight, we wouldn't just get rid of all those buses. We wouldn't shift over entirely. We would still need to replace a lot of buses. So it might mitigate some of the cost, and the TDP outlines what that would be. I think it does shave it down, but we would still need to undergo a pretty significant.
How long do they?
And tonight we're actually not, we're just bringing this to your attention because it's something you're going to see as we approach future budget. So tonight it's just a workshop to start putting some of these topics on the radar.
Okay, I have another quick question. How long do the $85,000 buses last?
Maximum 5 years. We've
Okay.
been keeping our bus for some weeks, close to 20 years. So, but these are 200,000 miles for 5 years.
Okay.
So you have to replace more,
Got it.
a lot more vans. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. If we, for other funding revenue sources, I'm trying to remember, if we move up to the second category, the MTPO becomes like that second category, does that open up more funding for transit buses or no?
It's unfunded, so it's on the priority list of NTPO, but it's unfunded. So what we asking is support to apply for grants to replace.
I mean, if our population goes up to the next category, does that open up funds that we get? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, but you can create additional problems because the grants are gonna be for capital only, but not for operating.
I got you. Okay.
When you hit the 200,000 miles, 200,000 in population.
Just how long I've been hearing maybe underfunding RTS for a long time in terms of capital expenditures. How long have we always kind of underfunded capital expenditures for RTS?
Yes.
Okay. Could we normally just get free buses from Orlando, or once they kind of hit their 12 years and we get them? That kind
Yes.
of
The $1 million that we do get is grant funding.
Okay.
But that's a grant that is successful in getting every year.
And I guess when will you be coming forward with kind of proposed capital funding plans? I mean, I guess we're moving into a new thing. I mean, $8 million is a huge amount of money. And I guess the other thing too is our contracts with the University of Florida and San Jose College and the county, and then being able to kind of meet the real cost of preventing transportation.
So, at least my initial take has been we're not at 100% cost recovery with either the university, the college, or the county. we're probably about 67 to 70% of cost recovery. It may be, and that cost recovery is based upon us only buying $1 million worth of buses a year versus a full cost recovery based upon $9 million. So that number would drop even more significantly at that point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner. Thank you. So continuing with that point, are you all planning to come to us with a proposal for how to meet these capital expenditures over a period of time?
We will come to you with a proposal, whether you have the appetite to fund it or not is really going to be the crux of the decision, but we will give you our best professional advice, recommendation in terms of if you want a sustainable RTS fleet, this is the way to do it.
Well, I think that we should also propose that to our partners, particularly the ones that you mentioned, because how did you figure that cost recovery, or is that just?
I'll defer to Jesus for that.
Well, please keep in mind, we used to have the campus development agreement. On those, we got funding for buses. We used to have a fleet age of 14.5. We went down to 8, and now we're going back up. So when we were receiving funding from everybody, we were able to use that fleet age.
Okay. Well,
I think the answer to your question is we negotiated it.
sure.
We came to a number, as I understand it, the parties balked at that. We lowered the number to a point where we got acceptance.
Okay. Well, commissioners, if this commission is going to go towards the direction of funding some capital improvements for RTS, I think that, just like was said to us, if we want a sustainable RTS system, that's exactly what we should expect from our partners. So they should all expect to see, they should all expect to pitch more in if we're going to do this. Just point blank.
Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Warren.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Basically, Commissioner Ariel stole the words right out of my mouth. So yes, we shouldn't be subsidizing U.S. transportation. So I'm very interested in getting to at a minimum 100% cost recovery with them and also the county. So that's something that I'd like to see and propose in the near future with them.
Can I put this also in a slightly different context? The two comments I heard. So traditionally in Florida, this transit is a function of a regional nature, which is provided by either the county or an authority. Most counties, in their distribution of gas tax, the portion of the county's gas tax that they keep goes towards transit. And so I've seen in the 3 different counties that I've worked in, that number being 60 to 70% of the gas tax being retained by the county for transit purposes. Here, we get a little bit larger municipal share, and the county uses their money for roads, but traditionally the municipal share has been used for roads. Here, we're getting a little bit more, but we're expected to use it for both roads and all of transit. So when we look at potential funding sources that are out there, the one that's really not on the table for us, but is for other transit agencies, is that gas tax.
From the county.
Well, again, yeah, so the traditional default formula for counties favors the county getting the majority of the money because they have the transit responsibility. Here, we entered into a negotiation and we get, it's roughly split 50-50 between the county and the cities, but the county has no transit obligation. So the cities I worked in before in Fort Lauderdale and Palm Bay, they maybe got 35% of the gas tax because of their share of the population in the county, and that all went to municipal roads on here. Here, our 50%, or it's closer to 45%, goes to transit and our road system.
Clarification on that?
Well,
So what I'm trying to identify is that when you say it, we went through a long deal a couple of years ago about trying to negotiate the gas tax with the county. And what I'm trying to understand is that when the gas tax is split up with the county and the city, was that where you were saying the county puts their portion in roads rather than transit? And that leaves us having to use our taxes for roads and transit.
So
But the
for,
better model would just be that the county would put more in towards transit. And when that arrangement, the split is set up, are we able to say to the county that you have to put so much into transit or not? Or, yeah, so that's where the problem is, because basically it just says you get the money and you can do what you want with it.
so with some minor exceptions, so the county does pay for about $1 million a year, just a tad over $1 million a year, but only for service in the unincorporated areas. There's a formula that we apply to any route that goes from city into the county, and they pay. That's where their amount is derived from. So that 1.021 million that they pay, that I believe they do use gas tax for, but it's, if I'm looking at these specifically, that's accurate. But they do not contribute to the city. My understanding is they do not contribute to in the incorporated area. That's 250,000. So between the they're basically spending about 1.27 million, at least as far as I'm aware, on transit. There might be some other pockets that I'm not familiar with off the top of my head, but that's the biggest chunk.
And then my original question that I wanted before Gail piqued my head about some other questions was that when you talk about cost recovery, is that everything that's on the expense side, or capital, or staff, or repairs, that you're talking about UF and the county being about 60%? I was trying to figure out, what does that pie compose of that you're getting 60% of?
So it's, and Jesus, jump in if I'm wrong, just having this conversation the other day with the city manager. So it's about $67 per hour, per service hour that we charge. If we were to add capital to it, it would be closer to 85, is that correct, Jesus? So
Okay,
it's
so that doesn't answer my question.
Operating cost,
So what, okay, again, if you're talking about cost recovery, what is in
Operating.
only operating?
Yes, yes.
So that doesn't include staff?
No, that includes.
That is-
Okay, so that's.
Right, it doesn't include the capital, so that's purchase.
And maintenance,
process.
everything that's an expense.
It includes
Okay.
maintenance, but it's not, yes, it's not the capital expenditure for a bus shelter, it's not the capital expenditure for a new bus, it's not the capital expenditure for
Okay.
facilities.
Okay. Well, I'm in agreement that we need to adjust our partnerships, sharing with. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
I would caution us to be careful about jumping too far out of the gate without all the information we need. I would look for multiple options from staff to show us directions that we might take, and to keep in mind that there are a lot of partners, and we want to do this going forward together.
Right.
If we decide we're going to take a baseball bat to our partners, it's not going to work out very well. So let's
Partners
get,
take a baseball bat to us sometimes.
sometimes, we would not have just plainly, we don't say this very often, but plainly, we would not have the transit system we do without the money we get from you. Now, the reason for that is because they do most of the writing on it.
Right.
But the infrastructure that we have wouldn't look like it does without the $15-16 million that flows in currently. We need them to be a more active partner in the discussion as well, I think, so that we can say things to them instead of them reading about it in the newspaper that we said we're coming after them. I would like us to have conversations with information in front of us and possible paths before us, instead of us walking out here saying, we gotta find $8 million. Let's get all the information in front of us before we walk out of here saying that. That's just my thought.
Yeah, and
Okay, so Adriana Santos, and then Hildebrand, and then did you have another one?
Sure.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So just on the cost for, currently when someone rides the bus and pays a fare, what is the cost recovery on that?
So they pay 150 and the cost per trip is about 250.
So I think we need to, when we're looking at the cost recovery, that I don't want someone who, everyone should pay the same price in essence. So if we're, I think it's one of the things we have to look at. Outside that incorporated areas, I think that's a little different, but in some of those, like some of the routes that the university students do kind of, in essence, kind of fund, if we say they have to pay 100% to cover a route that's used, then they are able to use as much as they want. Then I mean, they have residents who are paying different amounts for the same service in some sense. And I think we have to be kind of careful in that, in terms of like going, hey, partners, we need you to pay 100%. So I guess we have students who don't have a lot of money as well, and yet this all comes out of their credit hours, all has to be paid for out of their pocket. And if we're asking them to pay 100% of the cost of their fare, and then someone who is paying at the fare box, they're paying only 60%, I guess, too. Is that kind of probably around that? That's not fair. So I think that's one of the things we have to take in consideration when we're looking at kind of how we're doing fare recovery and how we're doing kind of cost allocation. I think we need to do a better job, but I think we need to look outside the box. But I don't think we need to say, hey, University of Florida students, you need to pay millions of dollars more. They already pay, I think, how much is their credit hour right now?
$944.
$944, so, dang, I think it's like, I won't do math on top of my head, but.
That's a transportation fee.
Yeah.
You pay more than that. That's.
So I think that's one thing we need to consider. I think there are ways that we need to charge more for our ones, definitely on the capital side, but thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, so my thought, in fairness, would be that we would ask staff to look at what our costs have gone up over the years and have the percentage of increased cost been maybe matched with the increase in contribution, so that if our costs have gone up, 10%, and the contribution from UF and Santa Fe has stayed level, then I don't think that they're helping to share the cost. So that's all I'm asking, is for staff to maybe look at what the ridership is on the buses, what percentage of that ridership, and what our costs have been, how they've gone up, and have the contributions from our partners been equal to, or have you already seen that and you can say that they've been equal?
Yes, but also we have on the contract, we have a CPI index, so that the cost of providing service up, so they pay more.
So you already have that formula
Yeah,
into your
yes.
contract agreement?
Yes. It's just they have the same pot of money, they haven't increased the fees in 5 years. So what happened is we increased the rates and we had to reduce them because they want to keep the same budget.
So what I see is in that 5 years, how much have our expenses gone up? And what has their contribution matched with? Because but they understand money, and it's a fair market to be able to say, in order for us to keep up this level of service and our costs are going up, we need our partners to share with it. I'm not asking anybody to give more than their share, I'm just asking to have that conversation, and let's see what we can get more of.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So it sounds like this is the first time, and I appreciate I'm hearing it, but it's the first time that I feel like I'm hearing about the cost recovery specifically, like that percentage for UF or for the county. Am I right about that? Have we heard about this before, and I just have not heard that in the...
Goes for the commission approval on an annual basis.
Okay, so it sounds like, though, this is the first time we're having a more of a protracted discussion about it. And it doesn't feel like we're in much of agreement on maybe how we should get there, but it sounds like we want to have a large discussion about this, so I'm wondering how we do that, what the timing is, and when we make decisions around that.
Perfect, so like City Manager said, tonight's just to put it on your radar. starting, percolating. We're gonna come back at a GPC probably, if we can get it on the next quarter.
Okay.
All of the different levers, we're aware of the different levers that we need to be thinking about pulling, whether it's transportation agreements, past TDP recommendations. We will be looking at those and bringing it back for a discussion in a setting where you actually can give us some direction.
Great.
For the moment, this is just put a pin in it, tell you, hey, by the way, we need to start addressing this because sooner rather than later, we're gonna need to make some decisions.
Okay, great.
So I would point out that cost recovery is not even part of this.
Right.
That this is about capital. And we may be in agreement, full agreement on how to do this, but I don't like to do that without a path, multiple paths in front of us. Because otherwise, we're just kind of grasping at air, and I don't want us to do that. But that's just my opinion. But again, this slide is all about capital and how we get from this $1 million a year to a more sustainable number and how that might work, which is an entirely different discussion to have with our partners and with ourselves than O&M cost recovery. Okay. Anybody else on this one? All right.
Okay, switching to an even more intense discussion. Parking. We're at a place right now with our parking management that we are looking for some direction on policy. We currently have some significant capital investment needs for parking, the maintenance, repair of the parking garage, as well as our existing equipment for on-street, our meters, and for ongoing repair and maintenance needs. This is another place where we haven't done very well with capital set aside. And I've gone ahead and we pulled some just cost estimates of what we're talking about from an equipment and maintenance perspective. There was also an engineering analysis done of the garage in 2015, 2016 that had some recommendations of about $300,000. There was about $72,000 invested out of that $300,000 to do some immediate repairs. The needs identified in that analysis remain today, and they're 5 years down the road, so they're even more critical. So we're looking at essentially a question that we're asking today is really around philosophy. Should we do paid parking in all of the downtown core when we currently have free parking and extending charging for parking into the evening hours? We're really looking at identifying this as a way to fund existing operation and then also fund possible capital replacement and ongoing repairs and maintenance of that equipment and running that equipment. Part of the
But again, when we say asking today, it's really, we're asking the question aloud today, not expecting direction. It's a bigger conversation. Want to put it on your radar because we're going to be coming back to you with some additional, we'll be at a future meeting, we'll be asking for some guidance. But today it's really to put it on your radar. So it's a workshop. We understand you can't get direction today.
So we were looking at 2 different options for you to consider. If we kept it in-house, we would need to fill existing vacant positions and add additional positions for professional parking staff. We'd be looking at replacing the equipment, repairing the garage, and extending our hours for free parking in the downtown core, and then also instituting paid parking where it's free now in the downtown core. And this would require some investment upfront. And then option 2 is going to an RFP for a professional parking management company, which could do a end-to-end parking management, which they can also bring capital investment. It wouldn't be more than what we're paying now for parking. We could sort of basically cost neutral, and but then managing and looking for cost efficiencies and additional revenue capture that a parking management expertise can bring. And ironically enough, some of the data collection we did over the last 6 months, because there's been a number of parking plans over the last 10 years here in Gainesville, we didn't think we needed another parking plan. But we working with Phil Mann, we're able to identify that there was some recommendations from a consultant back in 2010 that were brought forward, and they essentially are the same recommendations we would have today. There was no action taken at that time, and basically it's the putting paid parking where there's currently free in downtown core. We would true up and our on-street would be more money than our off-street to drive people to park in the facility. They identified the core area of what we're talking about when we talk about the downtown core. And all of the staff review of these documents and recommendations were supported as well at that time. So I just wanted to bring that back as context, so we're not saying we want to reinvent the wheel or we want to do anything really groundbreaking. This is basic parking management that we are seeking council or commission's insight on if they're willing to support this type of a parking plan. That was
Commissioners?
the right button. There we go.
Any input on those last couple slides? Commissioner DeSantis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If your option 2 of outsourcing is, or does that mean that you would also be outsourcing enforcement parking?
Not necessarily. Again, looking for commission direction. We have 3 enforcement officers at the moment. As part of an RFP, we can certainly require that they become part of that program.
So that's one thing that I would strongly be against is outsourcing enforcement. I think that's not something that we should be going into a private company. I think that gets into some kind of weird kind of things of they're trying to, I don't know, I just don't like it when we outsource kind of enforcement and taking away people's
We can
kind of
skip
rights
that,
and stuff like that.
That's part of a scoping issue.
part of the
Yeah.
scoping.
But also just as additional context, when you talk about outsourcing any of this, they are still reported to our parking team. So we are still managing that vendor contract, and they would still have to abide by the policies that are set forth by our organization. Parking management companies do handle enforcement. They handle bits and pieces. They handle the entire thing. One thing that you get with parking professionals is additional auditing, additional payment card industry, security protections. So there are some benefits to outsourcing because you bring in a team of folks who have that expertise because it is a profession. So there's that versus trying to hire in-house. So but you don't necessarily, you can set it up however you want. It could just be piecemeal. It could be we want someone to run the operation, enforcement separate. We want someone to run the garage and the rest of it separate. We can set it up any kind of hybrid thing.
Yeah, and I guess for me, I'd like to see more options. It is a profession, but we can also hire people to be able to run it for profession
that's why
as
there's
well
options.
and stuff like that.
That's why we're just looking for
yeah.
direction.
But to be honest, we have struggled with that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, attracting that talent, growing that talent internally, and then retaining that talent with a relatively small parking operation, because we're not a major city. What was it? Portland was a $60 million parking operation. We have about $1 million parking operation. So it's it's a very small team. So hiring, growing, maintaining, retaining that talent, it's a bit of a challenge. So the idea of having a partner, it's something I think worth consideration.
I'm open to considering it, but I also think we need to our size, I think we're dreadfully kind of underutilizing that we have, and I strongly think we should move forward on a parking district, which if we had a parking district, I think that might be people more likely to come here and work here because they know kind of what it brings with that.
It comes down to, again, the philosophical question of free versus paid, right?
So for me, I think we should do paid parking. I think it should be more expensive on the street than versus the garage. I think we should look to finding a parking solution that leaves like there's always kind of one space open per block, and finding that kind of, then no one can really complain there's no parking because there always is a parking space. And finding that kind of price can be difficult, but I think that's where we should move. Those are kind of the points I have right now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else? Okay.
Are you looking for direction or today or some thoughts today about this, or just like
Putting it
giving us
out
the
there for
information?
commissioners to think about and consider, we're also missing 3 of you.
But if you do have initial thoughts, that's helpful.
I mean, no, I'll wait. My initial thoughts, without diving really deep into it, is that people should be paying for parking more than they are. And that they should be paying for parking on the street more than in the garages. You know, we're growing as a city and we're gonna continue to grow. And I think that we just need to get people used to the idea right now, sooner rather than later, that parking is gonna be paid. So that's where I am with that, being, having lived in big cities. Thanks.
Just on the paid parking downtown, looking at other cities that moved from free to paid parking in on their street parking, businesses do better. The businesses now they can have kind of more people coming through. So we talked about parking district about 6, 7, 8 months ago, it seemed like, quite a while ago. I was hoping that we kind of would get into it now. It doesn't seem like we're at that point. Where are we in kind of being able to move? There seemed to be consensus last time of moving forward on a parking district from the commission. Kind of where are we on taking those steps moving forward on that?
Yeah, part of it comes to this question, if we're not, if the commission's not willing to make that step from free to pay, we shouldn't be entertaining the idea of a parking lot district because we wouldn't really have much to put into the district. It also, I think, prompts some questions about a business improvement district downtown. Does the PLD provide seed money for the bid? What is the role of the CRA? That's been in transition over the last year as well. So I think we want to come back to you at a future, a relatively near-term GPC. But we also, you know, we want to put it on your radar. We will be talking about paid parking downtown to make it the juice worth the squeeze.
Okay. I would remind everybody that there's no such thing as free parking. Either 134,000 people subsidize it or the people using it subsidize it. That's the reality, but there's no free parking. I don't like us to use that term. But I do look forward to options. I always prefer to have multiple paths that we can follow and the information to back this up as we move into the discussion further down the road. Okay, any other? One more?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. And on another revenue source where I think we really charge is I think our neighborhood parking fees should reflect the available parking that are in those kind of, districts, the
And that
parking
was in the
districts.
consultant recommendation from last April.
So I guess to make sure, I do want us to move forward on this. I don't want us to be languishing. We've been talking about it for a while. So at the next GBC meeting, which you're saying hopefully will be in the next quarter, will you have a plan for us to have some real steps to be able to move towards a parking district and what's needed to move forward on a parking district and paid parking?
So, Commissioner, if you can define for me what you mean by parking district, because I'm not sure technically we need to create a district. We can just do it as a...
I think we can do that. Something that we can be able to bring enough revenue that can come back in, that we can bond that parking revenue for other parking, spending some of that money back into that same area, being able to fix up the area, being able to, if necessary, bond some of that money to build parking garages that are needed for the future or other kind of improvements that come from that.
Yeah, so, I mean, the most popular way in Florida of doing that is you just create an enterprise fund and run it as a separate enterprise of the city. So, and that's the way I would probably approach it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, any more discussion on this topic?
I wanted to go back, if we're done with the parking topic, I wanted to go back to the microtransit, the first mile, last mile. So without objection, if we could get some information back from staff on the zones for where that can be expanded to. I'm particularly interested in District 3. We have a transfer station in Butler Plaza that is utilized. In fact, when I did my ride-along, you know, I went from Rosa Parks all the way to the Butler transfer station, and I think that, you know, I'd like to see options for having a first mile, last mile pilot project out there that would also serve the residents over the bridge in the county, because that's another area where I think we can make some really good progress with transit. But I'd like to get more information on that before I start asking you all to support it. But basically just like an operations plan and what it would look like for a budget increment if that were something that the commission would want to see. So without objection, if we could just get that for the commission in a future time.
And that primarily, I think, is in the TDP already, so, yeah. And I would also add on to that I'm very interested in the one that serves Northwood and Pine Ridge.
Without objection, could you also include those areas?
The TDP lays out a full, you know,
Right.
if we put zones throughout the entire city, but those two zones in particular, you know, staff have, you know, given some initial look at, you know, where would be ideal expansion zones, those, you know, first blush fit the bill, so we'll be talking with the city manager about what those opportunities might look like and come back with.
Okay, and if they could just come back, it's very early in the season, so it's not as though it's urgent in the next 2 weeks, but I would like to have those discussions in the context of budget discussions as well, so we can get those. Great, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, I guess I would like to have ones for all the ones in District 4 as well. I mean, if we're gonna get that,
have the transportations.
I mean, we talked about it kind of coming back in the full. I want us to be careful of like picking out kind of ones to go in certain districts. I think we should look at where kind of be the most useful for the residents. Maybe that is the best one out on the Plaza area.
What problems does it solve?
Yeah, what problems does it solve? I think one of them, I think there are other opportunities. Well, I know that the University of Florida has been interested in adding things. There might be other partner funding that could be available as well. So yeah.
Well, I didn't hear an objection, so I heard an inclusion.
Well, let me clarify. Staff are gonna bring you the zones that are best support the overall system, and that can be supported by data, of course. We would not plan a transit system around, you know, obviously individual commission requests. That would be maybe not good, but that being said, you know, we know that there are a few pockets of need, and we'll look at where really the data supports some of those zones and where we potentially have partners. We have had some discussions with UF. There hasn't been a significant amount of interest in that, from my understanding, but those are early conversations. So we'll look at a variety of factors, data being chief among them, but partnerships also being placed.
The two that were mentioned are specifically on our radar screen.
Okay. Anything else on topic? All right, time for public comment. Please come up to the podium, introduce yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioner Nathan Scott. I'm speaking in response to the FPL rate email that Jerry, General Manager at Malarkey sent to the Commission on February 6th, which he stated that the citizens' comment is wholly without merit. I hope this Commission will take the time to listen, because while Mr. Malarkey routinely attempts to mislead the City Commission, his own interrogatory responses that were just passed out contradict his false narratives. As a GRU customer, I'm not going to be disparaged by a general manager that routinely lies by omission. Mr. Malarkey claiming that he did not know about the projected 2020 OATT tariff rate is an open admission that GRU management was grossly negligent and derelict in conducting basic due diligence related to a 30-year contract that GRU management was rushing to have the City Commission approve. GRU management knew or should have known about the 2020 OATT tariff projected rate months ago. This is the regulatory filing publicly available on FERC, dated August 13th. On page 11, you see the 2019 rate of $2.10. On page 12, it states that the 2020 rate will be posted on or about September 1st. That information was publicly posted by FPL on September 3rd after the holiday, as amended on October 9th. Okay? So again, GRU management, Mr. Pilarski, knew or should have known about the 2020 OATT projected tariff rate months ago. If anyone has a credibility problem regarding the FPL agreement, it's Ed Pilarski, not FPL. Certainly it's not Nathan Scott, who's informed the commission the truth that even Commissioner Warren could go find on FPL's website. It was clearly posted, commissioners. So I stand by my prior statements, which are founded by publicly available documents filed with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and publicly available on FPL's OASIS website. While the commission is complicit with or willfully ignorant of Mr. Pilarski's ongoing lies by omission, something needs to give here. But it's clearly I'm telling the truth that's supported by fact. And now he's trying to engage in his narrative to you as false narrative that the interrogatory responses were sanctioned by the city attorney. So my claims are completely without merit. You know, that's about as funny as Steve Marvel stand-up comedy. Okay? Because what he's telling you, commissioners, is not true. You know it, I know it. And if you were under deposition right now and I cross-examined him, it would be a completely different story. Because I assure you, I would take great pleasure in having him under oath and answering these questions because he bounces around the truth like Tiny Tim playing tiptoe around the tulips. I'm tired of it. I'm not going to be disparaged for bringing the truth to this commission. Thank you.
Mr. Scott, anybody else?
I didn't come here planning to make any, can you hear me?
No.
Any comments? Is it working?
I think it's working.
Speak louder.
Oh, okay, thank you. I didn't come here to speak, but I'm kind of a numbers person, and I think before you make a major presentation before the commission and the public, when you give your more in-depth presentation, that you have absolute numbers. For instance, at the very beginning, when Commissioner Warren asked about the usage, how it had gone up, and the comment was that it's kind of consistently going up or remaining the same. If you had graphs that actually stated how your user attendance has increased, that would be helpful. That was my first comment. My second one is you had mentioned about different manufacturers approaching them for the cost of replacement buses, and that it was financially feasible to use different manufacturers or a variety of manufacturers. I'm wondering if you asked for open bids and got really clear numbers on the prices of buses. And you had mentioned that the cost is $1 million and it should be $9 million. Well, my just quick calculation, you're getting 15 buses a year. That's about $1.5 million, and I'm wondering why you have such a inflated amount of needed revenue increase. Another one is that I've been all over the country, and a lot of cities are getting away from individual meters because they're extremely expensive to maintain. And a lot of cities are going exclusively to block kiosks, all over Europe, that's what it is. And I was wondering if that had been investigated. And as far as shared costs, you had mentioned that the cost should be shared equally, and I'm not sure I agree with that. I think possibly if you approached UF and said, we will give discounts to students, they have their student cards, if they got discounts for using, but in exchange, you would be a more a party in campaign for support for this needed increase in revenue for the buses. Another one is,
Ms. Fields.
oh, I'm done?
Yeah,
Done?
we've gone past
Yeah,
the 3 minutes.
sorry.
And before you start, if I could ask you, if someone else wants to talk, if you want to come queue up, that'd probably be a nice thing to do.
Don Fields, I agree with you to an extent, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Ward, and that the plan should be presented to the board that you can anchor your conversation, and maybe there are multiple options. But I would think, since the RTS has been around so long, that plan could be the one they're using right now to start with. Whatever plan, how the turnover rate, when it's turned over, the costs, and so forth and so on. And so I would recommend that that's the one you should begin with and spring and show the options from there on. And then the second comment was just an inconsistency, which this kind of thing always bothers me. I've heard one thing, that the active life of a bus was 5 years, where the slide actually showed 12. And so so I don't know what that difference might mean.
Different buses, entirely different kinds of
Different
buses.
buses, but we're talking about average life, right? I mean, otherwise, the terms need to be defined.
And they did define them in the conversation. I'm sorry we didn't have that on slide.
Thank you.
So the difference is that we've started using smaller buses for microtransit. Those are the 5-year, 200,000-mile buses as opposed to the traditional buses. And we don't have previous data by the boatloads for those previous.
And but what you need is to break those out.
Sure, I was just giving you the information, sir.
And the cost differential was, those cutaways we use for first mile, last mile are 85,000. The Gillig buses, the full-size ones, are $500,000, so that's why that was the calculation that was done.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Pro Tem Ward. Let me see if I can get this gizmo to work. Hello.
There you go.
I'm going to come down here. I would like to be heard. Thank you, Commissioners, for that presentation. I think the idea of, having a capital plan to maintain and replace our fleet is an absolutely necessary element of this. Jesus, thank you for bringing that to us. Is this the first year that we've had to talk about this?
Well, why don't you go ahead and address the chair? I appreciate that.
Okay. Through the chair, why are we talking about this big gap? When we've run this bus system for how many years, Mr. Chair?
Quite a few, go ahead.
Okay, so
20 plus.
it's not the first year that we've run this system, so we should have some type of account where we're constantly building up a capital account. And it's my understanding that we have something, $1 million a year, is that accurate? So I know that we all want to shift to electric buses, and I'm all for that. It's my understanding that at this time, electric buses are something like on the order of 2x what a regular diesel-powered bus costs. So we need to balance our wants and needs. And I think the University of Florida would be very interested in participating, since they're going to go carless on campus, in having electric buses. And honestly, I haven't seen you guys negotiate anything yet that you did well. I'm glad that Mr. Feldman's here and Mr. McCready's got a lot of experience with transportation, because somebody needs to lay the wood to UF. If my kids are over there paying $9, $10 a credit hour for the buses, and if that's not enough, possibly they should participate. But we can't just, Commissioner Ward, you're already talking about getting out of baseball brand. I think that's totally contrary to the spirit of what should be discussed. You should be in touch with them already to see, do they want to participate in electric buses or not? If they do not want electric buses, then let's run diesel buses on their routes. But the price of electric bus will come down over time, and it's not necessary that we get them next year. The sooner the better. But you know, you guys run a budget that's so far in the red to even start talking about converting your whole fleet absent some kind of major grant program, which I thought it was Mr. Hoffman was telling us that we applied for a grant. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
So that, I just want to back up.
Mr. O'Brien, your
Scott's
time is up,
statement,
please.
Mr. Ward, because I had to fix your microphone for you.
Mr. O'Brien,
I
your
want to back
time's
up
up.
Mr. Scott's statement that
Mr. O'Brien, your
the fact
time's
that
up.
you could come over here and not.
Mr. O'Brien, your
what the
time is
full
up.
power light-
Mr. Manager?
Mr. Ward, behave yourself. It's going to take me 5 seconds to say that I think that you should.
It's already taking you 30 seconds more than you said, so.
You're going to trespass me? I mean, there's nobody else here that even wants to comment.
Okay, we're at recess. Any other public comment? All right, any member comment?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I actually would like, Ms. McCready, if you can speak to the kiosks that, can you remind me what your name is?
Christina Fields.
That Christina just talked about. Have you considered that?
Yes, that's actually the process
For the voice
kiosks.
kiosks?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Correct.
Thank
And
you.
I would never recommend the individual single space
Okay.
leaders when I was in Portland with building those.
Got it. Thank you.
The kiosks are a lot more fluid
Yeah.
and they can serve more users.
Yeah.
And they're also, there's multi-space machines and stuff. And that's what we have currently actually in the parking garage. It's that similar type of kiosk.
Got it, thank you.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think we can even buy parts for those machines anymore, are they? Or they don't even manufacture them, or it's tough to find?
The meters that we have, correct, they do still make single space meters, but ours
But all the ones
are
are.
essentially obsolete.
Just on one request on future workshops that we can just have, I think have it in the meeting in room 16 downstairs. Unless there's a space constraint reason of having it here, I think it'd be good to have that at City Hall. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll just schedule that way.
Very well. Well, since we can't make motions, again, if I would like to express my dissatisfaction with the workshop format, we should definitely make sure that all of our meetings are there since they finished all that work in that room. That seems like, yeah, I'm with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On workshops, I don't think workshops are bad. I think they're good at certain, but your opinion, Mr. Commissioner. I think there are reasons to have them. I think there are reasons to have special meetings. I think there are reasons to have full-on city commission meetings. I don't think we should change our rules in workshops. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, any more? Sure. We're adjourned.